I always thought the whole gut feeling thing was exaggerated, something people say after the fact to sound wiser than they were. But that morning, standing in our kitchen surrounded by pastel balloons and diaper cake decorations, I felt it. Not a full-blown panic or a scream-in-your-face kind of gut punch. No, this was quieter, sharper, like the moment you realize you left the stove on, but you're already halfway to the airport. It was our neighbor's baby shower. That's what I kept telling myself. That's what she kept saying, too. For Chelsea and Matt, she chirped, sticking paper ducks on the wall. Can you believe she's already in her third trimester? Yeah, I could believe it. What I couldn't believe was why my wife had RSVP'd us as the hosts. We're child-free by choice. I reminded her last week when she sprung it on me. Her response? Exactly. That's why it's perfect. No one's expecting us to have a kid, so it won't be weird. Right. Because nothing screams normal like planning a pastel explosion in your backyard for someone else's unborn bundle of joy while you sip your soy latte and roll your eyes at children in restaurants. But I went along with it. Like I always did. I smiled through the whole setup, tied ribbons, inflated balloons, nodded at the stroller talk, and helped hang the ridiculous bun in the oven banner above our grill. It wasn't until I went to grab her keys out of her purse, she'd left them on the counter next to the deviled eggs, that the universe gave me the slap I didn't know I was begging for. There it was. A baby blue envelope. Thick, handwritten. Smelled like that expensive cologne she claimed she was allergic to. I wasn't snooping. I swear. I was just looking for the car fob, but my fingers brushed the corner of the card and it slipped out halfway. The message inside wasn't long. Just enough to light a stick of emotional dynamite. Can't wait to raise him with you, love, D. She never mentioned a card. And last I checked, D didn't stand for Chelsea or Matt. I stood there like an idiot for a full minute, just rereading the note. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a gift for someone else. Maybe D was a friend? A cousin? A total misunderstanding. But no, that pit in my stomach grew teeth. Especially since the only D we both knew, the one who had been suspiciously helpful with shower prep, the one who started jogging at the same time as her in the mornings, the one whose dumb biceps had their own gravitational field, was our neighbor, David. David, the human protein shake with a man bun and a full-sleeve tattoo of Norse runes. He had started calling her Sunshine lately, had given her a joke, onesie last week that said born to lift. Yeah, real subtle, buddy. So I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I played dumb, patted her shoulder, and said I'd take the first shift at the grill. Then I got in my car and drove. Not far. Just to the CVS a few blocks away. I bought two things. A paternity test kit. An extra envelope. And just like that, I had a new gift for the shower. One she'd never forget. See, I had options. I could have faked a work call and left. Could have ghosted the entire event and packed a bag. But something about the way she was glowing that morning, the same glow she used to have after our third date, the kind of glow that made strangers smile at us like we were in a toothpaste commercial, it made me want to burn it down slowly. So I waited. I set everything up exactly the way she wanted. I even made a slideshow of her and Chelsea's friendship to loop on the TV, and yes, David was in every other picture. Shirtless, grinning, helpful. The guests arrived around noon. The backyard was buzzing with congratulations, awkward baby-themed games, and too many cupcakes. I caught David whispering something to her near the drink table. She laughed, the kind of laugh you save for someone who sees you naked. Still, I held the envelope in my pocket like a loaded pistol. You know what the worst part of betrayal is? It's not the act itself. It's watching them pretend everything's normal. Watching them kiss your cheek and tell Aunt Linda how grateful they are for your support. It's the performance. And my God, she deserved an audience for this one. So I waited until the gifts were nearly done. One by one, she opened them. Baby wipes, diapers, weird animal-themed onesies, a white noise machine. I have one more, I said, stepping forward, envelope in hand. She blinked. Confused. Curious. A little too confident. This one's from me, I said. To you. For everything you've hidden. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. She laughed nervously, opened it slowly. Then her face drained like someone pulled the plug on her bloodstream. Her hand trembled. The guests leaned in. And right there, above the fire pit that doubled as our makeshift baby gift altar, she held up the printed DNA test results with her name and David's. Silence. Then, 3 months, huh? I said. Everyone turned. David choked on his mimosa. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No words. Just guilt. Pure, uncut, day-old guilt smeared across her face like expired foundation. I didn't move. Didn't raise my voice. I just smiled. The show had just begun. The look on her face when she saw that paternity test. Frozen. It wasn't just shock. It was calculation, fear, and embarrassment all blended into a single breath. I'd never seen her so quiet. Guests murmured. Cheryl, one of her college friends, dropped her water glass. David's jaw twitched like he was trying to swallow regret. I stepped back, letting the shock settle like smoke. Letting the hush ripple out. She stood there, hands shaking, the envelope slipping in her fingers. Her smile, which usually comes so easy, was cracked. I almost wanted to feel bad. But something tighter than regret twisted in my chest. Something that said, about damn time. She cleared her throat. This isn't what you think. People shifted. Babies cooed. Someone asked if she needed water. I stayed calm. Watched the performance morph. The rehearsed speech. It's complicated. David helped me through a hard time. Exactly what I expected. David stood. Tall. Shirt sleeves rolled. Face red. He stammered. I meant no harm. I didn't mean for. I cut in. I'd practiced this moment in my head, but nothing feels quite like having it. Raise who with you, Morgan? I asked, voice soft but public enough. Because the card says, love, D. I'm not Dean. I'm not Dominic. You didn't say David. You said him. She swallowed. He's the father. A father, I said, repeating. A single father who isn't me. The room tilted. Someone gasped. Baby toys clattered. Someone's eyes filled with tears. Her mother clasped her hands to her mouth. She nodded. Tears falling. Yes. There. The confession, half delivered, hung in the air like spilled wine that won't wash off. I watched the guests like a judge surveying a courtroom. Her friends, her family. They all stared at us. The mother, the accused, the betrayer. Me. Once again, the husband who didn't expect to be the villain. Morgan's voice cracked. I thought you'd understand. I thought after everything, you'd give me this, because I needed you. Needed me. Not the truth. Not my consent. Just the idea that she could hide a life inside our life and still expect affection. You didn't just hide a card, I said, turning slightly so everyone could hear. You hid 3 months. You hid excuses. You hid this baby from me. 2 women behind the table exchanged glances. Their faces peeled back in disgust. Her sister whispered, "This is so wrong." I didn't flinch. I held the envelope out like evidence. I got this at CVS. Took me 10 minutes. I could have used a better font. Still felt sick. Silence. A baby cried. Someone handed her a tissue. Then she dropped the bomb they weren't ready for. Not the real father. The room spun. Stares zoomed in and out. Her mother gasped. David went pale. My personal trainer, David, isn't biologically the father. Eyes turned to me. I felt like someone lit a candle in the dark and wanted me to believe the shadows could hide the rest. Morgan pointed at David. He came into my life after the first trimester. I thought he was the father. He didn't correct me. I didn't check. She looked at me. Her voice small. But I didn't deceive you fully. I felt something hard snap in me. Not pain so much as disgust. Not the betrayal. Not even the hiding. But this, the way she half-lied. The way she let silence do the work for her. I cleared my throat. So let me get this straight. I bought gifts. I kissed cheeks. I helped hang decor for a baby I didn't know existed. Because you wanted to believe something half-true. David's face crumpled. I thought she meant. Her mother sobbed. Her father looked at me as though for answers. His eyes both pity and accusation. The guests backed up a little. They looked at me. Standing there as if I was the tragedy they didn't want to own. Morgan looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. I never meant to hurt you, she said. I raised a hand. Don't, I said. Save it. She bit her lip. Tears tracked down her face. The card was in her hand. The envelope I'd handed her still open. The test, the printed positive result with her name, David's name in the lab result, etched in ink. I'd timed this moment for weeks. Weeks of quiet, of building evidence, of watching her retreats, of watching him linger in photos, of him overhelping. This wasn't about proving she cheated. This was about proving I knew. Publicly. And maybe humiliating her just enough to make her think twice next time. Because here's the twist you never expect in passive-aggressive revenge stories. She went into labor 2 days later. Not planned. Not expected. Midnight contractions. Ambulance ride. Me half-dressed. Her mother crying. David nowhere to be found. We ended up in the hospital. The baby came, a beautiful girl. They named her after her grandmother. I held her limp little hand. Tried to reconcile that somewhere inside the betrayal was a whole other person. Innocent. Perfect. Morgan looked at me in that hospital room. Her eyes red. She whispered, "I needed you to know." I nodded. I didn't say, "I forgive you." But I didn't say, "I hate you" either. And the canvas I had ordered? The big one for the fireplace? It didn't hang. Not yet. Because I needed to decide whether this room, this house we built, deserved the truth mounted above its hearth. After the hospital chaos, sirens, whispered speculations, doctors and scrubs milling, life didn't reset. It morphed into a new routine. Nights spent awake listening to machines. Mornings spent staring at a baby so small she made betrayal feel both massive and microscopic. Everything hummed with what was not said. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that card in the envelope. Love, D. The ink smudged from where I'd gripped it too tight. David's name printed on that paternity result. The shock on her face at the shower. Her confession that wasn't confession enough. Morgan was exhausted. The kind of tired you can't heal with sleep. She paced in the hospital room, pacing in our house, pacing through every moment trying to answer the question. How do you be a mother while keeping someone out of the loop? How do you build a cradle with one hand while holding secrets in the other? Meanwhile, I gathered more. I watched how she looked at the baby. Not with equal parts love and guilt like I expected, but confusion, as though she were trying to stitch together two conflicting truths inside her. The first truth was motherhood. The second truth was deception. I reached out to a lawyer, quietly, not loudly. I didn't tell Morgan. I just asked questions about paternity, about legal timelines, about financial obligations when there's fraud. I wanted to know if I could protect myself, and if I had grounds beyond heartbreak. Turns out, paternity fraud is a thing. You can sue, sometimes recoup emotional or financial damages. Laws are murky but growing more sensitive. I also collected some tiny breadcrumbs. A text thread between her and a midwife friend, time-stamped weeks ago, where she asked, "How do I hide this without hurting everything?" A screenshot of a prenatal ultrasound picture sent to David, not me, annotated "our boy." A voice message she left herself by mistake, where she said, "I hope he doesn't find out yet." Then hitting delete, but not before the autosave had done its thing. Then came the decision. For the first time, I wouldn't wait for her to explain. I'd force the architecture of truth around us until she couldn't hold up any walls. When we got home from the hospital, she was buried in motherhood. Sleepless nights, feeding schedules, diaper changes. Friends came over to see the baby. She introduced her as our daughter. Every, "Ooh, she looks like you." Every, "You're such a great mom," felt like salt in my chest. I accepted help from her parents. Cooked meals for them. But I stopped talking about us. Every time I thought of reaching for reconciliation, I remembered the blue card, David's name, the envelope slipping from my fingers. One evening, her mother insisted I sleep in the master room. "You two need space," she said half-whispered. Morgan's mother was always protective of the truth, but not always gentle. Upstairs, I couldn't sleep. Listened to baby monitor crackle. Heard Morgan rocking the baby in the nursery. Heard her whispering, "I'm sorry." And then, "He doesn't deserve this." I almost intervened. I almost said, "You do deserve this. You deserve the fallout of the choice you made." But love keeps many lies alive in the shadows, so I stayed quiet. A week later, I sent David a message. Not accusatory, just factual. "You are listed as the biological father. If that's wrong, fine. If that's true, I'll deal with it publicly." David didn't respond. He never did. She later told me he was scared and conflicted. That means nothing when you're complicit through silence. Then I planned the next move. Because revenge, in my mind, isn't loud. It's unavoidable. For her baby's christening, that weekend where family and friends gather for prayers and photos, I got custom invitations printed. They looked innocent, elegant, white roses, gold script. But inside each invitation, I included a tiny footnote, something included in the design so most people wouldn't notice unless they read the fine print, but enough that most would. Please confirm your RSVP by reading enclosed results of parentage testing. All who attend shall be witness to truth. I didn't tell her. She saw them in the mail stack when I dropped them off. Her eyes flicked. A gasp. She looked at me. I nodded. She did not stop the printing. Guests arrived at the church. She wore pale pink. I wore gray. The baby in white. Candles. Hymns. Photos. Here comes the moment I built like precision architecture. When it came time for the priest to ask if anyone present knows any reason why the child should not be christened, I stood, walked to the front, held the envelope with the test results. Before I spoke, I watched her stomach drop. The hush in the crowd that swallows your voice but amplifies every word. People deserve to know, I said. Not because of vengeance. Because truth deserves witnesses. I unfolded the paper and set it on the altar. Showed them the lab result. Negative for David's paternity. The test she'd ignored when it first came in. The test she told herself she didn't need. The one I asked to hide. Her mother gasped. The priest paused. Someone fainted. She stared. She crumbled. Then, twist, the lab result was wrong. I double-checked. Thought I'd been clever. Thought I'd done enough. 2 different labs. But mistakes happen. I had the wrong sample. The mother's test, Ruby's DNA, David's DNA, but swapped tubes in transit. The result didn't say he wasn't the father. It said there was technical contamination. The baby is his, according to correct lab results that came later. The false negative circulating causes chaos. The room, the world, it cracked. Because while I intended to expose betrayal, I ended up broadcasting confusion. Morgan collapsed in tears. David stood dumbfounded. Guests turned away. My own voice echoed in my mind. Truth and revenge are dangerous, especially when you miswire the foundation. I left the church without staying for the photos. I held the baby briefly, looked into her eyes. She didn't know what to think. Neither did I. That night, I removed the baby's picture from my phone lock screen, opened a photo of the blue card, of David, of me, smiling at balloons, of all of it, and wondered if exposing a lie you believed would still hurt someone worse than the original lie. The canvas I'd ordered still sat in its crate in the den. I wanted to hang it. Still wanted to make it permanent. But the weight felt different now. Less of vengeance, more of regret. I texted Morgan. We need talk. This isn't closure. Far from it. She never texted back. The hospital stay ended with discharged forms, sleepy goodbyes, and a tiny bundle wrapped in white cloth. Ruby came home with us. Her first night in our house smelled like antiseptic and newborn perfume. The kind they use in hospitals to make you think everything's okay. She slept in the bassinet by her side of the bed. I lay next to her, listening to Morgan's breathing, trying to decide whether to hold on to this moment or tear it out by the roots. Days passed. Ruby's cries became part of the soundtrack for our mornings. Diaper changes, feeding schedules, sleepy smiles. Guests texted congratulations. Her mother brought casseroles. Mom and Pop neighbors peeked over the fence with gifts. I got a rocking chair from David, who said, "Wanted you to have this for the baby." His smile stiff, his eyes avoiding mine. And underlying all of it, that card, the paternity test, and the silence. Morgan seemed to believe the baby was David's. Or maybe she believed in her own narrative so completely that the lab mix UPS, the weird messages, the voice notes, the texts she deleted, all seemed like cosmic static she could ignore. Every time I looked at her, I saw that tension in her shoulders, the same tension you get when you're wearing a mask for too many hours and feel the skin underneath burning. One afternoon she was feeding Ruby, sitting in that rocking chair David bought. The sun cut through the window in stripes. Ruby's eyelids fluttered. Morgan glanced at me, then at Ruby, then back. "I'm going to call the lab again," she said, her voice soft, "to double-check everything." I said nothing, because I already had confidence in what I'd assembled. Photos, messages, test results, even if flawed, invitations, the little note in the RSVP cards. I had legal counsel on standby. I had stitches of proof laced through every layer of the facade. That night, Morgan left the room early. Said she needed fresh air. Ruby sleeping. I waited for the sound of her boots outside. I followed after 15 minutes. Outside, she stood on the porch, staring at the side gate, hands gripping the railing. The night air smelled of damp grass and regret. I didn't say anything. Let her breathe. She turned, eyes rimmed red. "You did all this planning." Her voice cracked. "You used the shower, the baby, the invite, everything." Yes, I said. Because you planned it first. Her face crumpled. I wanted you to know me again. For once, to feel needed. She swallowed. I thought having Ruby, letting people see, maybe it would bring honesty. That's not how honesty works. I stepped closer. You can't build truth on a foundation of lies. She hiccuped. Rain started, a few drops, then heavier. She held out her hand. Please. I didn't take it. I left her there, on the porch, rain mingling with tears. Walked back in. Checked the RSVP cards. Over half had noticed the footnote. Sent related messages gossiping. Some were sympathetic, others angry. All talking. I realized then, I didn't want her apology only in private. I wanted consequences. I wanted people who believed in her still to reconsider. I wanted her truth to carry weight beyond our walls. The next day, among the condolence casseroles and baby gifts, I quietly returned the rocking chair to David's porch. Wrapped it in plastic. Tied a note. Returned. Unwanted reminders. That afternoon, I made a phone call to the lab that processed the test. Under the pretense of quality control, left messages asking them to re-verify the sample chain to see if there were any flagged disqualifications or contamination identifiers. They confirmed they found minor discrepancies in sample tube labeling but couldn't guarantee the error didn't affect results. I posited it gently. Let it simmer. Morgan didn't know I called until she picked up the lab's callback after I left a message saying someone on behalf of the family requested results. The lab tech was polite. Yes, the discrepancy was real. The contamination flag should have been more visible. We recommend a new sample. Morgan's face when I relayed that news was a cavern of everything. Relief, fear, frustration, confusion. I heard her whisper, "So David is the father." She looked at Ruby, held her close. "He is," she said. That afternoon, I packed a small box. Copies of every message, every photo, every flawed test result, every RSVP invitation, the card, the envelope. Photocopied, stamped, signed, all of it filed. Also a few copies sent discreetly to people who'd come to the shower. Her friends, aunts, those who mattered. I printed up a notice, not a declaration, just a please read carefully message on the parent-adult group listserv. Dear friends, confusion has come to light regarding parentage of Ruby. Given lab discrepancies, a retest is underway. Mistakes were made. Transparency is requested in kindness. Some replied in support, others in outrage. Some messages were private, along the lines of, "Why involve everyone?" or "This is cruel to the child." I almost deleted them, but I left them. Because revenge isn't just about exposing betrayal. It's about reshaping the narrative. Letting the ones who cheered for opacity understand what clarity costs. Morgan confronted me later that night. Ruby asleep. House quiet. She said, voice hollow. "You could have done this without shaming me." "Perhaps," I said. "But shaming is the sound lies make when truth wakes up." She cried. A loud, full cry that woke every memory in me. The promises. The little cheating starts. The gaps she thought I wouldn't notice. The long nights while she texted. The invitations that said us, but meant them. We argued. Sharp words. No shouting. Just fracture. She asked, "Do you hate me?" I paused by the window, looked out. Charlie would have loved to live here. Eyes wide, tail wagging. Ruby perfect in her sleep. And all of it compromised. "I don't," I said. "But I don't love lies." She turned away, sobbing. "Can you ever trust me?" I shook my head. Hurt still fresh. Trust isn't given back when you demand it. It's earned on different ground. She nodded. I went upstairs. Lay by Ruby's crib. Watched her breathing. The dim night light glowed. I thought about what comes after exposing betrayal. About how you live once you've thrown open the windows and let every secret fly out. The painting I ordered still stood crated. The invitations still printed. The rocking chair still vacant. Revenge had been served. An imperfect, messy feast. But truth, that was just starting to stitch new wounds. I thought the weekend would bring clarity. That church scene, the baby's christening, the printouts, the whispers, it all felt like a crescendo, like finally the music of things hidden was going to stop. But clarity doesn't always arrive wrapped in neat bows. Sometimes it comes jagged. Ruby slept in, cooing into the early morning light. Her breath a feather-light rhythm. Morgan didn't wake until the sun had already cracked through the blinds. I made coffee. Black. It tasted bitter. But it's what I needed. I handed her a mug. She rubbed her eyes and smiled, half smile. It wasn't enough to wash away the tension. I remember that moment because I realized I was done pretending I believed the lies didn't hurt. When she opened her computer, there was an email notification. The lab. New results were in. She paused before clicking. I didn't look away. Let her sit in that moment of hesitation. I wasn't sure if I wanted to read them alone, she said. Read them here, I said. She opened. Scrolled. Her face changed. Eyebrows furrowed. Lips trembling. Then she looked at me. They confirm, she whispered. David is the father. The contamination was real. The mistake was real. I nodded. Didn't say more. The next move, I scheduled a meeting with our families. Not because I wanted judgment, because I wanted accountability. Invited her parents, David's parents, our closest friends, those who'd shown up at the shower, at the christening. Told them something like, we need to talk. Hard truths. Everyone deserves to hear. The room was heavy when people arrived. Ruby in her white dress. My mother quiet. Her father stoic. David awkward. So many eyes on me. So many mouths already hungry for excuses. I stood up. Paternity results in hand. The envelope, lab stationery, seal intact. No doctored printout this time. Real thing. Thank you for coming, I said. A few weeks ago, I told Morgan I'd expose what was happening. I did. But I was wrong about one thing. Her lips parted, confusion flickering. She misled you. She misled me. I believe what she fed me. Looked for clarity, but stopped where it hurt least. I paused. The silence was sharp. But these are the new results. I handed them to her mother. Then to David's parents. Confirmed. David is the biological father. A murmur passed through the room. Faces hung in disbelief, anger, betrayal. Her mother's eyes glistened. David looked like he'd been punched. Morgan swallowed. Yes. Then the twist. I pulled out another envelope. Small, unassuming. Also, I said, after seeing the initial negative letter, I commissioned a third lab. Independent. Chain of custody. I couldn't trust anything less. Her breath caught. This one says, there is no consensus. Because the sample they later tested was compromised by cross-contamination. Both positive and negative results are invalid according to that lab. People gasped. David's eyes snapped to mine. Her mother squeezed her hand. Meaning, I continued, we don't legally know who the father is. Not yet. But what is known is that she withheld. She assumed. She let things get murky instead of being honest. Morgan shook, tears rolling. I waited for you to say something. I did, I said quietly. Every day, with those invitations, that note in the RSVP, the post-shower test, the church moment. I said everything except your name. Her father spoke then, voice trembling. Why would you let this drag? Morgan looked at him. At David. At everyone. Because I was afraid. Afraid of hurting you. Of losing what we have. Of not being good enough. You could feel the chest tightening in the room. The betrayal was no longer just mine. It was communal. Shared. A wound opened in public just enough that people saw her bleeding. I dropped the lab result envelope on the table. I'm not going to ask for forgiveness, I said, but I am asking. Will you admit you built this story on assumptions, not facts? Will you admit secrecy becomes betrayal? No one spoke. Air thick and warm like summer before a storm. Then David spoke. His voice low, shaky. If I am father. Morgan cut him off. I don't want you to be. I didn't ask for that. I asked for honesty. The rest of the gathering dissolved into whispers, tears, some walked out. I didn't chase them. I stayed in the room full of my creations. A baby, a paternity scandal, an envelope of truth, a core of lies. That night, I lay next to her baby crib. Ruby asleep, her chest rising, sometimes perfect in its innocence. I stroked her tiny hand. Wanted to feel protective. Wanted to believe in redemption. Morgan came in, barefoot. She looked smaller in the doorway. I want the original painting, she said. The one you ordered for the fireplace. My heart did something I thought was gone. Something tight, hopeful, fragile. Why? I asked. Because that painting, it's not just revenge anymore. It's proof. Proof that I never meant for him to be the father. That I was lost. That I made terrible choices. But I want people to see it. Not as shame, but as lesson. I stared at her. The canvas crate still sat in the den. The print shop tag still dangling. I'll hang it, I said. But not above the fireplace. Her mouth twisted. You'll do what you decide. Her tears glistened. She nodded. I stood up. Went into the den, pulled out the crate, unwrapped the painting. Its bulk was heavier than I expected. The smell of ink and wood. The image, the shower scene, the card, David's name, my wife's face falling. I walked to the living room, hung it above the stairwell landing, so it would be seen by anyone walking in, but not the emotional core of the house. She followed, stood beside me, did not reach out. Done, I said. Her eyes were wet, her voice a whisper. Is this what you wanted? No, I said. This is what I needed. That night, I slept in our bed for the first time since the christening. She did not join until after I drifted off. Kindness in her breath. But no forgiveness. Not yet. Because some truths don't close wounds. They just force you to live with the scar. The weeks after the family meeting felt like treading water, heart pounding, trying to keep my head above silence. Ruby's laughter in the afternoon. Diapers in the trash. Laundry that smelled like baby powder and regret. The painting above the stairwell landing, massive, unavoidable. Guests kept giving awkward glances. Morgan tried. She showed up at appointments with doctors. She cut her hours at work. She sat with me at night with nothing to say and everything to wish she could. I saw her in the mirror when I brushed my teeth. Eyes red, eyelids heavy, lines forming where her laughter used to lift her skin. I envied the blankness people without secrets possessed. One evening, about 2 months in, she asked, "If we never had a baby, would you still be angry?" I did not expect the question. It felt like being asked whether you'd be angry if someone you love hadn't existed. I paused, folding my hands on the table. Charlie snoozed by the door. Ruby slept upstairs. I'd be sad we never got our chance, I said, but not angry, because no betrayal needed a baby. She nodded, tears glinting. I'm sorry for what I stole from you. Honesty isn't something you steal, I said, but secrecy is. She let the silence grow, then whispered, I don't expect you to forgive me. That night, the house was quiet except for Ruby's soft breathing. I looked at the painting, her face captured mid-smile, before truth twisted half that moment into regret. I thought about tearing it down, but I didn't. Paintings don't lie. Frames don't fabricate. They only hold up what was already there. Words were hard to stitch together, so I didn't force conversation. We ate meals in silence. Sometimes she reached for my hand. I let her, sometimes I withdrew. There was peace in distance. Distance without bitterness. Scars without screaming. Then the twist nobody foresaw. I got a call from the lab. A message I'd almost missed. Additional evaluation of paternity, following our earlier inconclusive test, has revealed that the sample labeled Ruby, mother, was swapped with another patient's. The true mother sample now confirms David is the genetic father. My heart stuttered. So everything aligned. The negative result was false not just because of contamination, but because the sample wasn't hers. A medical mix-up, a lab mishandling, a bureaucratic disaster. Point being, the truth came through not by handling secrets better, but through someone else's mistake. I told Morgan. She held me in the study, hands shaking, Ruby asleep elsewhere, Charlie curled in his bed. She whispered, so it was always the same. I nodded, confusion and relief twisting in my gut. Her mom cried. David said nothing. What now? What do you do when the final truth is more than you expected and less than you needed? I hung the painting again, moved it above a quiet chair in the den, somewhere you sit when thinking, not when entertaining. Guests still see it if they walk through the hall. I want them to see. I want Ruby, one day, if she walks here, to see it too, not as a judgment, but as honesty. We didn't rebuild like nothing happened. We fumbled. Therapy. Conversations laden with, why didn't you tell me sooner? And did you not trust me? And can we be honest enough moving forward? She never asked me to be happy. She asked me to be real. I told her I couldn't promise love like before, but I could try to be present. Ruby's first steps came in that same den. I saw her toddling, hand raised, and something inside me stirred. Not forgiveness. Not the past smoothed over, but possibility. There are no neat endings. A baby doesn't erase a betrayal. A confession doesn't erase the scars. But truth, the stubborn, bleeding truth, changes the trajectory. Morgan has her bad days. I have mine. But Ruby looks at me sometimes and laughs. Charlie still wags when I call him. The painting stays. It's ugly. It's painful. It's honest. And maybe that counts for something. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting what you want. It's about forcing yourself to live with what is real, no matter how imperfect. I open the kitchen window some mornings now and let in the cold air. Let in light. Let in the possibility of ordinary things. Breakfast, laughter, partial trust, a baby's giggle when I enter the room. There's no emotional closure. I don't know if there'll ever be, but there is clarity. And for now, that's enough. Subscribe to the channel